So today we're talking about the second chakra, healthy relating with others. This is part of a series that is called the Joyful Chakra series. And I really felt inspired to talk about it for a lot of reasons. But one of them is it's really interesting to look at all of our various chakras individually to understand what the working parts of them are. But it's also really interesting to understand how they all fit together. Because sometimes if you imagine if you were like a circle or a sphere, and your life force, your soul, was sort of in the center of it. It's just one thing. It's a whole being. We are a whole being. Now take this sphere and kind of stretch it out into a human. All those individual spheres become our chakras. But they're all essentially the same, right? Whether we have a struggle in our seventh chakra or our second chakra, there's no such thing as, sometimes we say, oh, well, I'm blocked in the second chakra, I'm blocked in the fourth chakra. And imagine instead that those blockages are like symptoms of something. The symptom of the blockage in the whole is showing up in the second chakra, or it's showing up in the fourth chakra. But the blockage is in the whole. And this is really, really important because sometimes, especially in the second chakra, because this is a lot about relationships and sex and money and all these things, it's like I need to unblock my second chakra. It's a little bit of a backwards way of looking at it, because it's almost like, okay, my whole being is blocked, but the clues are being shown to me through my second chakra. That's the key. So today's talk, we're talking about relationships predominantly. We could talk about our health in the second chakra. We could look at our urinary tract system and our sexual organs and all that kind of thing. We could talk about money. There's many different things we can talk about in the second chakra. But today we're specifically talking about relating with other people. Because in our world, this is one of the number one things we can shift. It's how we perceive relationships. And we are such social creatures. It's such a huge part of our lives. Or we're not social creatures because we've had such crappy relationships in the past. Some people are naturally introverted. Some people are naturally extroverted, for sure. The bliss of solitude is a real thing. I don't take away from that. But we are also social creatures. We are meant to interact, and not out of some guilt thing that says, you should be more social. What's wrong with you? Not like that. That there's actually a reason to connect. And it's not just because you should. It's because there's bliss there. There's joy there. There's the potential of creation there. That's why. I remember my teacher, Jim. For anyone who's new, years ago I had a healing crisis and a guru came into my life, and his name was Jim. And he used to always say, if human beings were meant to be alone, we would have all gotten our own planet. We're social creatures. We're meant to interact with others. And are you guys having technical problems? It's all good? So one of the big reasons that I want to talk about this is, one, we are social creatures. Two, we often define ourselves based on our interactions. So our sense of self-worth comes from how we interact with each other, how we interact with our parents, our children, our lovers, our spouses, our colleagues, our neighbors. What do people think of me? So that also counts. Even if we're introverted, we are considering other people's opinions of us. And this is really important. Like, we've internalized this in a very deep way. So this is really valuable. And I really want to talk about, so our talk is going to talk about all the things that make it difficult, everything that's possible, and then the real bliss potential, that real, the masculine and feminine, and not talking gender, the masculine and feminine merging of two beings and how that creates divine oneness. That's where we're going to go to the end. But first, we need to discuss our actual life and our typical experience here on planet Earth. Sometimes I want to write, I started actually doing this once, but it didn't go very far. I was going to write these chronicles, and it was like, star date here, life among the humans. So first we're going to talk about typical life among the humans. So first, let's just talk about these chakras. And again, we can look at all kinds of aspects of the chakras, our health, everything, spiritual connection. But today I want to talk about how we connect with each other. So how does the second chakra fit into this whole system that we are? So I want you to imagine two triangles. There's an upper triangle, which takes our throat chakra, our third eye, and our crown. This is our connection to infinity. This is our connection to God, the divine, consciousness, the quantum field, however you understand that, the energetic aspect of the human, right? So here we have the crown where we connect into that quantum field, into God. Then we have our third eye, and this is how we hear, this is how we access, this is like our satellite to the heavens, right? And then our throat chakra is how we share what we hear. So this is all very ethereal, very energetic, very light, right? This upper chakra. Then we have the lower chakra, where you're sitting right now. This is the first chakra. This is how we connect into the earth. If we were living in the woods, it's how we would connect into the woods. If we live in the village, it's how we connect into the village, into our community, into our family. The second chakra is how we connect one-to-one with people. How do we interact? What's possible here? And then our third chakra is, who am I? What is it that I'm here for? What car was I given to drive in this time? And so we have our third chakra at the top of the lower triangle. We have our interactions, how this person interacts with others, and then how this person connects into the whole community. So what we're talking about today is this second chakra, which is interesting, right? Because within our bodies, the second chakra has a left and a right. The two kidneys, the two sexual organs. We have this interaction because they're meant to play together. They're meant to merge. They're meant to create magic. That's what they're meant to do. So, why would we ever want to connect with another human? It's really important to begin with this. Why do we want to? The first reason is because it feels good. I know it doesn't always feel good, but let's imagine we were all healthy, self-actualized, connected humans. Imagine we're not interacting with people who are struggles and they're narcissists and all these kind of things, right? Let's just imagine the ideal human experience. It feels great to connect with others. It feels great to do things with people that we love to do things with. It's fun to create together. It's fun to bring all of our different gifts together and actually create new things that we couldn't do alone. There's an amazing bliss potential that when you come together, and I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, I'm talking about an amazing conversation. I'm talking about supporting each other, genuine support, and coming together and being there for each other. This is so wonderful. And another wonderful reason to actually be together, to connect with each other, is to get to see the world through other people's eyes, right? There's this beautiful story about the blind men and the elephant, and there's an elephant standing there, and these 6 blind men are standing around the elephant. And one of the blind men is standing by the tail, and they're defining the elephant, and they say, elephants are long and thin like a snake. And another one's standing by one of the legs, and they say, oh no, elephants are like tree trunks. And another one's standing by the tusk, and they're saying, no, they are hard, and they're doing all this comparison. And the reality is, they're all right. Together we understand what an elephant looks like. This is the joy of being together. I was reading this great quote this morning by Rabindranath Tagore, and he said, the goal isn't just merging together so that we're all the same. The goal is to merge together with all of our differences intact. Can you imagine having connections and that all of our uniqueness stays intact? The bliss in that, the discovery, the exploration of this other unique human. Like, how much fun is that? Like, we would literally walk out into the street and go, oh, look, there's another human. Let's go find out what they're all about. Oh my gosh, this will be so cool. It's another, because it's like, that whole Rumi idea that, the entire world is within us. That you are not a drop in the ocean. You are an ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. That every single one of us is infinity in a very interesting incarnation. So imagine every person you see, you go, how you doing? What's, how's this incarnation going for you? And actually having a conversation with that kind of flow. We would love people. We would love interacting with people if it was that easy, right? So if we just sort of hold that ideal in our hearts and say, all right, there is this possibility, no matter how kooky things have been so far in my interactions with the humans. So what has made this so hard? Why do we get blocked in the second chakra? Why do we have issues in this relating with others? Which of course is connected to everything. It is connected to our health of our second chakra. It is connected to our sexuality. It is connected to all of these things. But why do relationships become hard? Why do we become fearful? Why do we become plagued with guilt and anger and shame and all the things we've talked about in all the David Hawkins levels of consciousness? What is it? Well, one of the things is that we've had forced interactions with others. We've been forced together. And what happens in forced connections, when there's no connection, is a power struggle ensues, right? So one of the things we're going to talk about a lot is the masculine-feminine dynamic. And there are times that gender may matter here, in a heterosexual relationship or something like that, but not very often. It's very, very seldom, and it certainly doesn't apply in the whole. But we use the words masculine and feminine. We could use yin and yang, but yin and yang are different. There's a slightly different feel. The masculine and feminine is more dynamic. So just to forget about gender altogether, I wish there were better words, but there aren't. I remember reading the book Stranger in a Strange Land, which was epic, by the way, in the land of adding cool books to read to your to the stack by your bedside. And it was all about this guy who had been raised on Mars, and when he came back to Earth, he of course was a fully actualized human, He was telepathic, empathic. He could do telekinesis. He was connected to the whole. He was like, all the human beings are designed to be. And he spoke Martian. And one of the funny things is if you wanted to study with him, you had to actually learn Martian because our human language wasn't sufficient to explain these concepts. I love that. Anyway, the terms masculine and feminine are not sufficient to explain this concept, but it's all we've got in English. So the masculine and feminine is duality, right? We have the oneness, the omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing God space where we are all one. Then we experience duality here on the planet. I can see you. You can see me. We are experiencing each other in this time-space continuum as different. In this moment, we are not one. We are experiencing the joy of duality. We get to experience the oneness in each other, but in a duality. So in this duality that we live in, and you can almost feel your second chakra, right? Like here you are, and you pull apart into these two parts, right? So now in this duality, we have a positive charge and a negative charge. And these come together, and they are drawn together by magnetism. We are energy drawn together by magnetism. That's how duality works. The masculine and the feminine is the same. The connection between humans is the same. That's how we're wired. We are just electrical systems working in magnetism. This is why, as you walk through the world, you might see a person and you feel attracted or repulsed. No judgment, not repulsed like, that guy is so repulsive. Not that repulsed, just simply like a magnet, like, woo, right? Woo, just a little repulsion, right? Like that. This is something to be honored, right? Attraction is important. Magnetic attraction in duality is a sign. It's the guidance that suddenly someone's there and you go, whoa, this is a thing. That's important. And then together, that magnetism that drew you together will give you that potential for that bliss experience in conversation, in anything. It doesn't have to be sex. I may not be the only one thinking that I'm talking about sex. Because God knows, we'll go there. But if that attraction isn't there, there's nothing we can do. So if we are in a forced situation, and this could be our family, this could be a marriage, this could be a job, this could be all kinds of things, where we actually are forced into interacting with others when the reality is our entire being is being repulsed, right? So we are working against the magnetism. We're working against the whole foundational principles of duality and where, what's possible for humans here. The other piece of that is, for whatever reason, I don't know when it happened in human history, but somewhere, and again, there's a lot of theories that we could go on some pretty heavy tangents on here, which I'm going to try not to because I'm tangent girl. But it's like historically there was a time when we were connected. We were telepathically connected, empathically connected. We were connected to the earth, the indigenous teachings all over the world. And then something happened. And again, this is where we can tangent, which I'm not going to go to today. That could be another talk. But something happened that created great disconnect. And this disconnect, inside and with each other, set us up to be fearful of each other. It set us up to stay separate. So all of a sudden, this very natural empathic connection, this natural telepathic connection was severed. And we felt very alone. And we no longer connected. But we're still in relationship with each other, whether it's siblings, intimate relationships, whatever. but we're still together because we know we're supposed to be together. We know we're supposed to maybe partner or we're supposed to be in groups. But why is it so hard? Because we've lost this connection, which I believe we are all developing. We are redeveloping it right now. But we're looking at the history of the humans. So in this connection, the only way we can interact with each other is through duality, through this masculine, feminine thing. But if we are disconnected, what happens? It becomes a power dynamic. So suddenly, some of the masculine, feminine dynamics that actually work, and this may sound very different than many other masculine, feminine dynamics you've ever heard, but imagine the masculine, feminine dynamic of giving and receiving. The same talking, listening, teaching, learning. These are a natural way that two beings actually connect. One person takes the masculine role, again, deleting all gender out of here, the masculine giving role, and the other takes the feminine receiving role. When you're actually having a conversation with someone where one person is fully in the giving, speaking role, and the other is fully in the receiving role, and you feel magnetically attracted to have this conversation, this is bliss. This is when a conversation, causes you to lose track of time. And all of a sudden the sun's gone down and you realize you've been lost in conversation for 6 hours, right? This is a bliss state because we honored all of it. We were connected, we were magnetically attracted, and we had this wonderful conversation. What does this look like in separation? Right? I'm talking to you. You've got to listen. I'm talking to you. But this person didn't ask for what's being given. Right? This person, and think about all the training we've had in this. Whether it's sitting in school and being forced to listen. Somebody is giving you something. They are teaching you something. You have to listen. This is not a bliss state. This is disconnected giving and receiving. It's like, and again, even sexually, you imagine this giving and receiving. One person is in the giving role, one person is in the receiving role. This is what creates the magnetic oneness. There's a bliss in both sides, right? But because we've done it in disconnect, it's like, if we're disconnected, it's like, I want to give this to you. I don't want that. Or, I want this from you. Well, I don't want to give that. This is disconnected connection, disconnected relationship. There's no bliss state happening there. And this is the challenge when we have forced connection. We have this weird thing, which makes us just not want to hang out with people anymore, or that person, or, yeah, for some reason I just don't really have any libido anymore. Really? I'm not so sure. Like maybe, or maybe not, right? Maybe there's just literal repulsion, right? And again, not to get this weird, there's a lot of stigma around that word now, but it's just a magnetic push away. That's all. We don't have to get personal about it. So imagine how many times in the world we have this forced, this disconnection. And you can feel this, like even in your own body. Why do we have this disconnect in the second chakra? Because we have the disconnect in our life. Right? Why can our second chakra not play together in full creation? Because we're afraid of each other. We're not actually able to be empathic with each other. Think of all of our challenges, even being an empath, walking around the world. It's like, most empaths want to hide in their basement. It's like, oh my gosh, like the din out there is deafening. So it's a really important thing to look at. So for example, the giving and receiving. Giving and receiving is probably the number one masculine feminine dynamic in our world, because we've lost all joy of giving. We're forced to do charity through guilt. Well, you should give this, and you should spend that time, and you should volunteer, and you should, be selfless, and you should do this. So all of a sudden, giving is a should. Well, when I want to give to you, look out. There's no should in it. It is like a tsunami coming your way, and I am on the bliss train flying in that tsunami. There is so much joy in genuine giving, right? Like, this is pure joy. If you purely give without any, in total joy, you have no expectations of the other person. You don't need them to give it back to you. You just unleashed a tsunami on them, right? And it was joyful. And the joy in receiving, to know that the only reason I'm going to unleash this tsunami of giving on you is because you desire it. Because I'm empathically connected to you. I know this. I feel it in you. And you're like, yes, I would love this. And I say, I have this to give. Here, this will be awesome. But we don't force people to receive things. And we don't force people to give things. We have to allow natural magnetism, natural truth, natural connection. And then there's real bliss possible. I remember reading a book on this giving, on this charity thing, because I've always struggled with kind of this, this Messiah complex, right? That we're supposed to save the world, we're supposed to help everybody else, we're supposed to do all that. And for the most part, I think there was something inside of me that was like, no, I really love this. I really desire this. But there was also this idea that it was altruistic. It was the ideal thing. It was, I don't know. I think there was ego attached in it, right? And then somewhere along the line, I read a book called The Zen of Helping. And it was genius. It was the medicine I needed to hear at that time. And because they basically said, if you aren't genuinely joyful, that this idea of giving and helping others doesn't stir your soul and make you happy, then you aren't actually helping anybody. Even though you're going through the motions, they know you don't want to be there. Their soul knows. Their soul knows you are sacrificing yourself for them, and you are actually making them feel guilty for making you get out of your own actual path to help them. And you're actually doing more damage than not. And this blew my mind. Like, imagine all the guilted charity we've been taught to do. What if we just stopped it? What if we only gave when we love to do it? The amazing thing is, this will allow other people to receive, because they know there are no strings attached, physically, emotionally, spiritually, at all. They know that you genuinely are getting joy out of giving, and the joy, all they can do, the best thing they can do, is with open arms receive it. And by receiving it completely, you add to the other person's joy. Changes everything. Imagine how different this second chakra, this interaction with others would be if all giving and receiving was authentic. Right? It changes everything. The other big thing that we have to be careful of in the relationships with others is that we don't treat other human beings as objects. Because we do this all the time, especially in this disconnect. And there's a lot of reasons we do it. It's like, so the most obvious thing is, say, treating someone like a sex object. Well, what are we really doing? What do we really mean by that if we treat someone like a sex object? We look at them, we say, oh, the sight of you really turns me on, so I want to keep looking at you, or I want to have sex with you, or I want to do this because you're really turning me on. But that's not considering that that is another infinite human being you're talking to. You're not considering their reality in that moment. You're not considering, you're not empathically connecting with them and realizing there is a magnetism here that is drawing us together into a different experience. You are simply objective, you're making them an object in your world. And we do this all the time. We treat our spouse like an object. They are someone who fits in our life right now. I need another person to go on holidays with. I need another person to help pay the bills. I need another person to have sex with when I'm horny. I need another person to, I don't know, do whatever with. But that's a person. That's a human being with feelings. They're not an object to just fit into your chess game. And this changes everything because we've kind of been taught to objectify each other. What do I want in a husband? Oh, well, he has to be this tall. He has to make this much money. He needs to be funny. And he needs to be interested in these things. It's like, no, it's a soul. It's an incarnation of God. Like, it's not a checklist. It's not an object. It's a human soul we're connecting with. And it's really, this is a huge untraining we have to do. We do it with our children. Our children can easily become objects in our world. You know, we internalize things. We internalize that picture of here is the perfect family. Ah, yes, and here are the parents, and here are the children. But they all become kind of objects that need to show up for the photo shoot. But every single one of those beings are little infinite beings on their own unique journey through this world. They are not objects in my soap opera of my journey as a parent. They're not something to be proud of. They're not something to be ashamed of. They are individual humans. And I get to hang out with them. But they are not mine. They are not objects. You know, it's not, even sometimes we can even look at our parents like objects, especially if it's difficult, right? Well, they should be different and they should act this way and they should be this and they should be that. It's like they are human beings having an experience. They are bringing lifetimes of, who knows, karma, ancestral trauma, all these things together. And they are a soul moving through their life. Was it fun being their child? Probably not, right? I'm not taking away any of the trauma of abuse or anything like that. But they are just morphing humans. And as soon as we treat them like a thing that they're supposed to be, they have now become an object in our story, as opposed to the morphing infinite beings that they actually are. It changes our entire perspective when we don't treat the other like an object. You know, we even treat our bodies, like if we forget about others for a moment and we think about how we treat our bodies, we treat our bodies like an object. We do this control thing. You're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and you're going to eat this, and you're going to do this exercise, and here's what you're going to do. And our bodies just become these objects that have to bend to our will. What if our body is a live, sentient, wise being? What if the key is listening? What if it's a dynamic relationship with the body? And we flow together in creation. What if that's what we do? What if there's no forcing? And it's just connection and communion. The other challenge is, we've done a lot of talks about the levels of consciousness in David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, and how all the levels of consciousness below courage, fear, shame, guilt, pride, anger, these kind of things. If we are living in any of those levels of consciousness, you can feel the disconnect. Because again, if I'm feeling shame, you become an object that is shaming me, right? If I feel guilty, you become an object that is making me feel guilty, or I become an object of their guilt, or whatever. But it's this disconnected, inhuman experience. If we actually, let's say we did feel shame, because that's the lowest, that really knocks the stuffing out of us. If I'm feeling shame from someone, imagine I consider this other who is causing the shame in me. And it could be anything. It could be a person. It could be a parent. It could be the church. It could be society. It could be my partner. It could be anybody. And they want me to feel shame. When I actually consider them as a human being or an institution or whatever, but I consider them not as an object, not as some fixed object of truth and authority, but an actual morphing organism, I can look at them and say, why would you want me to feel shame? Why would you want me to feel guilt? Why are you trying to trigger anger in me? What's going on here? Right? When we really keep everything alive, every single thing and person we interact with, we keep them as live, morphing, growing, changing beings. We don't get stuck the same because we're actually relating. We're actually connecting with this other. It changes everything. So, then what does healthy relating look like? What's possible if we have this other person in our life? And regardless of whether it's functional, happy, there's lots of times that we're forced into relationships, whether it's the job we have, whether it's the family we were born into. Who knows, right? Maybe it's even the town you live in, right? Maybe you live in a city that you don't relate to, or a small town that you don't relate to. Who knows? We find ourselves in all kinds of situations that don't necessarily feel like we have a lot of choice sometimes. But what's really possible? Well, one, as human beings, we are designed to connect empathically with each other. We are designed to connect heart to heart, right? So remember when I talked about these triangles? We have this upper triangle, and then we have the lower triangle. What connects the two triangles? The fourth chakra, the heart center, anahat. Anahat means unstruck chord. It's like the potential of all things. It's the potential as we mix the divine with the physical and vice versa. And it's ironic that as humans, we connect here. We connect empathically. That for all intents and purposes, if we actually are open and we actually feel this other person, this is impossible. This thing, because we feel each other. We feel the other person's pain. We feel their struggle. We feel their joy. We feel everything. And we just connect that way. And then from that empathic place, we can polarize into this lovely masculine and feminine based on the situation. Another great polarity is structure and chaos in the masculine and feminine. The masculine is structure, the feminine is chaos. And so imagine you find this other person and you connect empathically through the heart. And then you sort of do a little dance together. And maybe this person is in a particular state of chaos, right? Maybe they're struggling with something. Maybe they're hurting. Maybe they're grieving. And the natural magnetism forces them, as they trust you, into that place, that deep dive emotionally, and this person naturally becomes strong and they become still and they naturally hold space while this person becomes chaos, right? And then now this is an amazing union because the stronger this person is, the more chaotic this person is. But how do they know how to act? Because they're connected empathically. They're not doing it through their brain. They're not doing it because they should. They're doing it out of the natural navigation of a heart connection. This changes everything. It isn't from the outside in. It begins with the empathic connection together. And then we naturally give and receive. We naturally support. We give structure. We add kids. We do this because we're one. We're connected. This changes everything. When two people come together, we can read each other's minds, right? We're naturally telepathic. If you've ever read the book Mutant Message from Down Under by Marla Morgan, sometimes I think I want to do an entire talk just on that book. It's so genius. But it's a story about this New York journalist who goes down to Australia to find out about the Aboriginals. And she gets taken on a 6-month walkabout. And one of the things she teaches, or they teach her, is that all humans are designed to be telepathic. And the only reason we can't read each other's thoughts is because we live in a world of judgment. Right? The judgment that separates us, that says one person is better than another and all these things, right? And again, we can go back to whatever this thing is that happened that kind of planted this seed in us, because I don't think it's our nature at all. But for whatever reason, we have all this judgment. So the truth is, we can't handle reading each other's thoughts. Because what if you don't like me? I don't want to hear that. I can't hear that. Right? And what if I'm having all kinds of thoughts about you that I don't want you to know? Right? Like we can't handle it. Like imagine even relationships, right? What if you walk into the room and, you meet your friend's new husband and every cell of your body, let's assume you're me, and every cell of your body goes, wah. Okay, every female part of me just woke up. In our society, that's bad. Right? Because we were taught that is even if you've had the thought, you have already sinned. Right? It's like, this is one of the greatest teachings that Jim ever gave me, was like, it means you're alive. We are natural human beings with pheromones. It just means that you bumped up against another potential breeder. That's it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just maybe we've known each other in a past life. And that's it. He says the biggest problem is that we think it's abnormal. So we bury it, and then it comes out in all kinds of twisted ways. But instead we just but in our society, what if somebody read that? And what if this person said, wow, Katrina, you really turned on by my husband? I'd be like, yeah, I am. Can you imagine? But the truth is, and so what? But again, our society isn't ready for this kind of honesty. Because we just have such a weird foundation for truth, just reality. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It's just truth. We have so much fear and pride and shame and guilt and so much training that says absolutely whatever you do not be true. Do not be honest. Bury that stuff. Make sure it gets twisted and it comes out sideways when you're not looking. But the truth is, telepathy is so natural. And oftentimes we experience it with friends or partners or even our children when we have all of our guards down. If we're with people who there is no judgment, where there is no judgment, We do this all the time. My, my ex-husband, he used to laugh because my friends would come up to visit. I was a dairy farmer, for anyone here who's new. Well, I've been many things, but at one point in my evolution, I was a dairy farmer's wife. So my friends would come to visit, and we'd be sitting in the living room chatting, just being girls. And he would come in for coffee from the barn, and he would sit down in the room, and he loved listening to the women talk. Like, that was his favorite thing. And he would just sort of sit there with his coffee, kind of listening. I remember one time he said to me, he said, "Do you guys ever actually finish a sentence?" He's like, "I couldn't even follow what you guys were talking about, but you guys were all in total sync." And I realized that this happens all the time. It isn't just that we're anticipating what the other person's going to say. We heard them say it already. All they had to say was one word, and you're like, yeah, yeah. I do this with my kids, especially my daughter. The two of us will be chatting, and other people are like, "Are you guys actually finishing each other's sentences?" And we're separate, but there's just this symbiotic relationship, right? So telepathy is a completely natural state between two people. And I think we're growing that. I think as we drop the judgment, as we drop our guards, if we drop our training that separates us, like, that's what I feel we're doing in the world right now. Bit by bit, we're dropping these veils, these illusions of separateness. And we're starting to realize, and not just that to understand that we're one, but to these veils of separateness, these illusions of separateness that keep us separate, that don't allow us to connect at a heart level. And that's what I find. Every day I wake up and another veil has dropped. And I look out and I go, wow, why are we worried about that? Like, why are we stressing about this? This doesn't make any sense. Again, and genuinely, not like, it's not even an intellectual thing. It's just like, I've just noticed that green is different than red. And it's like, oh, so this illusion of separateness is disappearing in little places all through our lives. And it's becoming easier to connect. It's becoming easier to be honest and vulnerable and open with each other. And we are making amazing connections with people, even around the world. Whether it's here on Insight Time or whether it's in live classes, we're able to do this because these little veils of illusions are disappearing. And suddenly we're making friends and we're enjoying other people again, I have a feeling I need to do this talk again because there's so much more I want to talk about. So, because we never even talked about sex. How could we talk about this without talking about sex? I know. What? No soup? Unless you guys have no questions. And then, of course, we'll move on to sex. Well, actually, all right. We are going to talk about sex. Just for a minute. Wait, hold on. Unless there was a question. Oh. But yes, let's just talk sex. I love you guys so much. Okay, so how does this, because the second chakra is obviously connected to sex. Why? Why? Besides the fact that the sexual organs are governed by it and all that, but why is sexual intimacy such a big part of this? Because so earlier we were talking about how when you feel this empathic connection, right? You feel this lovely connection. And then you start to read each other because you're connecting in the heart. You're connecting with your infinite self. You're connecting with the soul. And from that inside place, you start to go, oh, interesting. And you have an experience together. What if you're doing this with someone who you have a sexually intimate relationship with, right? We don't have that with all people, but there are a few people on the planet that we do. If that's the nature of your relationship and you have connected heart to heart, what is possible? Right? Like from the inside out, suddenly you just start exploring the energy of this connection. And because you have the potential to go, you have the agape, right? I talk about the love here on Insight Timer. There's all these talks about love, agape, philia, eros, from my book, Tantric Intimacy. And so you have the kindness, right? You have the connection. You trust each other in philia. And you also have eros. Well, now you actually get to touch. So you actually get to connect physically. You get to bring all that energy into the physical world. You get to channel all of this down into the bodies. And then the bodies get to connect. And they even get to like deeply connect or whatever. And within that deep connection, bliss happens. In the same way that you lose track of yourself in a conversation with a good friend. You just flow in this bliss state, in the deepest hug possible. That's what sexual intimacy is meant to be. We can do all the other stuff. We can do the disconnected sex. We can do the, I have this idea. You know, it's the same dynamic we're talking about in this whole talk. If we're plagued with fear, what's the sex going to be like? If we're plagued with pride, what's our sex going to be like? If we feel disconnected from the other person, what can our sexual intimacy possibly be like? If we're afraid to be telepathic with this person, if we're afraid for them to read our mind, right? If we're afraid, we will not drop all of our guards. We will not be able to connect because we're too afraid of their judgment. This is a huge deal. Sexual intimacy isn't complicated. You know, when I teach Tantra and people ask, well, like, you know, what are the tricks? What can I do? It's like, there's no tricks. The trick is connecting empathically. And then, because this is the only true human connection. Everything else is some weird objectified power play, right? Just trying to stay alive. Everything begins here. Whether we're having a conversation, whether we're learning from another person, whether we're cooking for each other, or whether we're making love. It all begins in this connection. And then anything's possible. Like absolute bliss states. Because you're bringing the physical and all the, you're really bringing the second chakra alive. So that's all I'm going to say about sex today. I feel like my spouse and I are disconnected, and I do feel a repulsion from him. As you talked about, is Tantra something that might help us connect? Yes, because the path of Tantra is within. It's a case of oftentimes the reason we are disconnected is because we have all of this training, all of these ideas, these constructs that say, this is what relationships are. This is what you're supposed to do. Here's, it's almost the things that put us into those guilt, fear, anger places. So our journey of Tantra is first connecting inside, right? That we actually become a whole being within. We release all of those structures. Then we can begin actually interacting with another person. But it does require both people to want to play. But it's always the journey within. Like, I have 2 courses on my website called the Foundations for Tantric Intimacy. And one is for individuals and the other one's for couples. It's exactly the same course, but the exercises are just different if you have a partner you're going to work with or on your own. But most of the time, I would recommend that anyone do the individual one, regardless of whether you're in a couple or not, because that's the journey. It's us that have to heal. It's us that has to feel that deep center inside, this deep alignment inside. And then when we're in relationship with someone, well, we're not afraid of anything because we're connected here. Like, we understand, we're connected with our own divinity. Like, Tantra is a spiritual path. It's the connection of our divinity in our physical life. Well, if we're fully connected with our infinite selves, what do we ever have to be afraid of? Right? We can still experience emotions and fly up and down and be all juicy and stuff, but there's not, so it's really something to heal inside and then see what happens in the relationship, because every little change makes a change, right? Does it work when a person has both masculine and feminine qualities? What if you're a giver and receiver? And some days a wife can be a successful leader, while other days a husband does the chores at home. The key is that, it was a great question, the key is that the masculine and feminine shifts depending on the situation. It's not like, and again, this is sort of a definition that's happening in the world, is that it's like, oh, masculine is CrossFit, feminine is yoga, masculine is fixing the roof, feminine is caring for the children. That's like a weird label thing that we have in disconnection. Masculine and feminine in this context is about connecting. So him doing the chores, the only thing happening is he's the masculine doing the chores, and the chores are the feminine. That's what he's doing. That's his interaction there. So in terms of relating with other people, we have to shift that. That's why the genders are relevant. That's not the point. We are always givers and receivers depending on the situation. I love being in the feminine relationship. That is my favorite. Like, intimately, I love that. But I'm a giver in a million aspects of my life, because that's the bliss, that's the polarity that brings bliss in those relationships. Right? It's not gendered at all. It's nothing like that. The only time it really matters is in relationship, regardless of gender, orientation, anything like that. We often have a preference as to whether we like to polarize into the masculine and feminine in intimacy, but it's not one or the other. I always think of it like a continuum. Like, for me, I'd probably say I like 80% being in the feminine and 20% of the time I'm in the masculine. Well, if I'm with someone who has the opposite, who loves to be in the masculine 80% of the time and in the feminine 20%, we're going to have a lot of fun. But if this other person wants to be in the feminine 80% of the time and the masculine, we're going to have trouble. Or we're not going to have any fun. So that's the only time it really matters. But in the rest of the world, we will shift and we'll shift and adapt to whatever the situation is, right? That's that empathic thing. We're reacting to the moment. We're not bringing our brain in and creating a situation. Where does monogamy fit in? Yeah, someone else asked a question about multiple partners. See, monogamy, polyamory, all these kind of things, these are just choices. This is my opinion. There are times that you might meet someone and you feel the bliss of a monogamous relationship. And that's wonderful. Or maybe you're in a state in your life where you want to have multiple lovers and be polyamorous, or not even so, or have an open relationship. None of this, there's no right or wrong. It's just what you desire. And if you desire monogamy and your partner desires monogamy, awesome. If you desire monogamy and they don't, then this is a problem. One's not right or wrong. It's just a match. But again, we have this real scarcity model. It sounds so cold what I'm going to say right now. We have this scarcity model that thinks that, but if this person doesn't love me, then I'm going to be alone. And it's like, there are almost 8 billion people on the planet right now. There's like, I'm not saying it's easy to find lovers. I'm just saying we have to be careful trying to force other people into roles that their soul isn't calling for right now. And if you desire monogamy and your partner doesn't, or the person you love doesn't, then it's just a sign. It's just oh, all right, then maybe we're not meant to be together right now. And that's that wholeness thing, to know that I am whole. Whether I'm in a relationship or not, I'm whole. And if I find someone and we have something interesting here and we want to explore, then we choose. And if it works wonderful. And if it doesn't, then I am still a whole being. It's very important to always, that's why we talk about wholeness, and it's not just about healing. It's literally like, I am an incarnate being of God. We are these epic creations on the planet. I apologize for anyone who hates the word God, but we are unbelievable beings. We always have choice. There's nothing to force others into, I feel this strongly with my sister. I'm struggling to connect with her, and putting in the effort feels like a forced giving and doesn't settle well. We even end up not communicating for days. I would really like to get to that place of natural magnetism with her. So here's the thing about natural magnetism. Natural isn't forced. It's almost like we can hold an intention of love for another person, and we can say, I hold love for this person. For some reason, our worlds are colliding in a difficult way, but I hold love for them. And then we continue on our individual journey, right? We continue on this incarnation's path, and we allow nature to take its course. We are trained to force things, and it's very important to allow. It's hard to trust sometimes that if I am naturally me, things will work out. We're taught to force. So it's a very interesting thing to just allow. What do you think about having more partners at the time? I mean, if reacting to a moment, it could be a lot of partners for some people. This is what I mean about, like earlier in the talk, when I talked about the fact that just because we're sexually aroused or attracted to someone doesn't mean that something's meant to happen with that person. This is one of the weird trainings that we've had, that if I'm attracted to you and I've had the thought, then I must act on it. What if you're attracted to 100 people? Like, what if you walked into a room? Who cares? Maybe you're just in a certain stage of your cycle and, your biological clock is ticking. And there's all these amazing possible sperm donors in the room. Or vice versa, or whatever, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a chemical reaction. It's just a pheromone reaction to being aroused by another person. But because sex has been treated as such a taboo subject, we assume that if we feel it, we almost have this unconscious compulsion, I must act on it. I must act on it. And it's like, no, you must not act on it. It's like you have choice. And you're allowed to be discerning. This is why it's so important to talk about it. That we don't have to keep it in the shadows. We don't have to let it run our lives. If I walked into a room and I was sexually attracted to 10 people, all I would think to myself is, everything's still working. Awesome possum. And if something came up that I wanted to act on it, and that worked according to my current life situation, maybe I'm single, maybe I'm in a polyamorous relationship, then maybe I go for it. If I've chosen to be in a monogamous relationship with another soul, then I don't. Like, it's a choice. We are always in a state of choice. And we just have to decide what we choose. That's all. We're not a slave to our sexual impulses, because they're it's just telling you that things are working. It's not very interesting. How can I be with my partner when he is so rooted with his friends and job in the city where we live, and I want to explore living communities in Portugal? Can there be a happy union between people who are at different points in their lives? 100%. That's what I mean. Like, we have to break down all these constructs of what a successful relationship looks like. We have this idea that a successful relationship means that two people move in together, fall in love, have this kind of relationship, and our lives sort of move like this. When you are a whole being, an individual, I love the word individual because it's a David Bohm used to talk about, David Bohm's my favorite quantum physicist. And he used to talk about the individual is like being indivisible, right? That I am a whole being. And if I am lucky enough to find someone that I'm in love with, and they love me back, and we choose to have this monogamous relationship, and this isn't like a judgment on it, I'm just saying that if that's the choice, that I want to be in a committed relationship with this person, I couldn't care less if they lived across the world or not, right? It's just that's the bliss of the relationship. It's anything's possible, whether we live together, we don't live together, it doesn't matter. Everything is changed. Everything is changeable, right? Yeah, don't get me started on David Bohm. Oh my gosh, that's my most joyful rabbit hole right there. My sisters are unhappy with my choices, but they are my choices. My life doesn't revolve around the others' views and ideas of the way they should be. Exactly. And this is new. Like, to really understand that this is new. Like, we've, up until this point in history, again, after this weird thing happened in the world that changed us into this disconnected experience, we began creating clans. We began creating like tribes, that it's us against them. Right? And the clan mentality, this is what we believe and this is what we stand for. And family can feel like a clan, that we must all believe the same things because we are a clan. And it's very primal. It's very fearful. But we're breaking out of that. And we're understanding that, no, we're actually we don't all have to think the same. And even if we are in a clan, the differences of opinions actually can make us stronger. But these are new thoughts. These are very different. Do you believe we have to have sex with others in order to be healthy? No, not at all. I mean, that's the thing. Like, when I'm in a creative space, when I am in such a blissful, wondrous place, I couldn't even fathom it. Right? And who cares? I mean, maybe you choose to be a monk this incarnation, right? And for whatever reason, this 80 years or 90-year incarnation, in the blip of our eternity, we say, nah, not this time. So I don't think it's necessary at all. If you want it, if you feel called to it and all that, that's different. But, it's all good. Yeah, I think it's not we have so much judgment about things. Like, it comes down to that old, the only proper relationship is a male and a female in a monogamous, long-term committed relationship till death do you part, and you should have 2.5 children, and you should each, blah, all this crap. That's not true. It's not remotely true. And it's this weird treatment that everything else is an aberration. Not an aberration. It's just souls connecting. That's it. And however we connect is awesome. And whether we choose to have sex with people, so what? We're timeless beings. Like, if we want to, awesome. And if we don't want to, perfectly awesome. But isn't not acting on these impulses forbidding yourself to live? No, I don't see it like that. Like, I have impulses all day long for all kinds of things. But I always listen here, right? It's different, right? When we align these chakras, right? And we ask ourselves, how do I navigate my life here on the planet? Well, in my second chakra, I may feel impulses to this person and that person and this person, right? I might feel these impulses. But as a whole being, I navigate through my third eye. That's how I'm watching my soul's path. So no matter what my impulses are, whether or not I am sexually attracted to that person, or I want to eat, 2 pounds of chocolate later, whatever, I have choice, right? And that's what makes us human. Whether it's Viktor Frankl or anybody, like Viktor Frankl is another one of my heroes, choice is what defines us as humans. So we can choose to do it or not to do it. I could choose to have hundreds of lovers at a time. Awesome. Or I could choose to have one. My choice. That's me living. That's me funneling all of my impulses, all of my desires through my soul and making a choice. Whether I have 100 lovers or one is not dictated by society, other people, or anything. It's my choice as a human being. And that's it. So to me, the fact that I have 1,000,000 impulses means I'm really alive. It means that I am connected in the universe and I am responding to the stimuli around me. And what I choose from there is 100% up to me. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you for everything. See you soon.